information's been discovered of the very people involved bragging that they were creating a 5-virus chimera bioweapon to produce a vaccine. Exactly what Dr. Francis A. Boyle said 15 months ago. That was February, early February of last year. That's more than 15 months ago now, man. Time is flying, and it's not about being right. It's about we don't make stuff up here. We make mistakes sometimes. I wish I was wrong about a lot more because we have a very accuracy rate, probably 98%. And usually things are worse than we thought. Usually the mistake is that things are worse than we thought. So let me now get to this as quickly and as cogently as I can. Before I hit this bombshell info, here's some background. Here's Fauci this year telling Senator Rand Paul he knows nothing about gain-of-function research when he specifically funded Peter Daszak to carry this out, and that's in all the admissions, and that's in all the documents, and they moved it from Chapel Hill, and he was directly over it, and I'll show you those articles in a moment. So here he is lying to Congress about putting in the spike protein that is the HIV spike protein that allows it to go into the mucous membrane and go right into our cells. Here it is.
Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute.
Do they fund Dr. Barrick?
We do not fund.
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain-of-function research?
Dr. Barrick does not doing gain-of-function research, and if it is, it's according to the guidelines, and it is being conducted in North Carolina.
You don't think inserting a bat virus spike protein that he got from the Wuhan Institute into the SARS virus is gain of function?
That is
you would
not
be in the minority because at least 200 scientists have signed a statement from the Cambridge Working Group saying that it is gain of function.
Well, it is not. And if you look at the grant and you look at the progress reports, it is not gain of function, despite the fact
that's
that
enough.
People tweet.
That is the criminal himself saying that back in May. That is just recently. So he is in a lot of trouble. He looks extremely scared. Paul asked him that a few months ago. This is breaking now. This is happening just today. Wow. I thought that was the old clip when they said, hey, we got the clip of Fauci denying it. Wow. Wow. Man, this is moving in live time. Okay. So here it is. Peter Daszak, president of EcoHealth Alliance, starting in 2014, was project lead on 6 NIH projects which focus on the emergence of novel zoonotic coronaviruses, COVID, with bad origins. Some of the project's work was performed at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Now, we're going to show you him saying that. It's an hour-long interview. Researchers are considered gain-of-function studies. The 6 projects receive a total funding of $3,748,715 from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. That's what Fauci is the head of. And we've got all the grants and all that right here. And there's huge articles with the former top New York Times science writer detailing it all, and that's what Tucker was going off of. So here, ladies and gentlemen, is him in an interview taped December 9th, 2019. That's the date on the interview. It was then finally posted on May 19th of last year, a year ago. And here is the project manager who was given money directly by the NIH, on record, this is mainstream news, to carry this out, Peter Daszak, to do it. And there was Fauci just now, today, in the Senate, lying, looking scared as hell. Again, he already denied it a few months ago. Here he is when this is already out denying it. Wow. So here is the smoking gun.
We went out to southern China and did surveillance of bats across southern China, and we've now found, after 6 or 7 years of doing this, over 100 new SARS-related coronaviruses, very close to SARS. Some of them get into human cells in the lab. Some of them can cause SARS disease in humanized mouse models and are untreatable with therapeutic monoclonals, and you can't vaccinate against them with the vaccine. So these are a clear and present danger.
Yeah.
We've even had people with antibodies in Yunnan to SARS-related coronaviruses, so there's a human exposure.
Right.
We're now doing surveillance. We're just beginning another 5 years of work to look at cohorts in southern China to say, well, how frequent does this ever happen, and is it associated with disease? Because I expect, just like Nipah in Bangladesh, there are dozens and dozens of small spillovers going on the planet any one time, which we just never see.
Sure. Yeah, they never amplify. There are a few cases that are just absorbed in the illness, the overall illness of the population, right?
They could say, so who cares, and that's one argument. But our suppose is any one of those could become a pandemic. There's a lot of stochasticity in what happens there.
Yeah.
So if we look at all of those, to reduce the number of spillover events we've got,
But if you say these are diverse coronaviruses and you can't vaccinate against them, there are no antivirals, what do we do?
Well, so I think coronaviruses are pretty good. You're a virologist, you know all this stuff, but you can manipulate them in the lab pretty easily. Spike protein drives a lot of what happens with the coronavirus, zoonotic risk. So you can get the sequence, you can build the protein, and we work with Ralph Barrick at UNC to do this. Insert it into the backbone of another virus, and do some work in the lab. So you can get more predictive when you find a sequence. You've got this diversity. Now, the logical progression for vaccines is, if you're going to develop a vaccine for SARS, people are going to use pandemic SARS as but let's try and insert some of these other related and get a better vaccine.
And I guess also knowledge of what's there. If you see something emerging, it give it a head start on making a vaccine or a therapeutic.
That's true.
If you see 5 viruses merging, you get ahead of it. They don't do that. It would take millions of years as scientists for that to happen naturally. It just happened magically. It's all merged at the Indian, and the Australian scientists said a year ago. The peaceful genes, the HIV added, that didn't come from a bat. They created it. Did you just hear him? We went out, we got it, we mixed it together for a vaccine, which we know they were developing vaccines at the Wuhan lab funded by the NIH for those 5 viruses, and he just admitted it, and that's what COVID-19 is, but it gets worse. When we come back, Fauci funded the University of Texas himself directly out of his organization, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, to study coronaviruses, vaccines of what it would do on lab rats, and caused protein problems, heart attacks, strokes, blood clots, you name it. Just in the last 2 days, I've talked to 2 people in my office, one in that building and one in this building that works directly for us, but she doesn't want to come on air. She's getting her uncle on tomorrow, who got shot, had a stroke the next day, and her cousin got super sick and almost killed him. She hasn't been here for days taking care of them, but now they're going to come on the show. That's people right next to me. This is an attack, and we have all the science. They did it on purpose. And they think it's so horrible, we will admit to ourselves what's happened. Listen, I can't keep this on air unless you fund us. Plus, we've got great products, but nobody's fighting like we are. Thanks to your support, we're here. Please know we've got to end the Turbo Force sale very soon. We've got a limited amount of the 10-hour clean energy in. People absolutely love it. It's amazing. We've known that Bill Gates and the UN and Fauci and the Chi-Coms were doing level 4 bioweapons development of gain-of-function coronavirus research. That was known in 2015 at Chapel Hill, North Carolina. There was a major scandal. It was in the newspapers. Scientists blew the whistle and said this is dangerous, it's illegal. And so Obama had it moved to communist China. Just like the black sites out of Poland, Hungary, Romania, Jordan, and Egypt were torture to China. And that's highly classified. That's directly from CIA operatives that I've talked to, 2 different ones separately. And later part of it came out. So they moved all this evil stuff to...
They moved it all to China. It was here.
Trump was dominating and was defeating the impeachments. When they knew they didn't have the votes, they released it on purpose so they'd have a shutdown of the West, Communist China would never really shut down, and it would become the dominant force, not the number 2 economy, which it now has. And all the globals that were invested in China would make trillions and trillions of dollars, which they all have as well. And we would now go under a global ID, a global control with the UN interest. We know the names of the scientists. We know who did it. We know, and now video has surfaced, not one video, but 2 videos, of the project manager and managers admitting to getting the 5 viruses like they were Thanos in Endgame or something, and combining them all together to create the super weapon. Emergency alert, Fauci project manager confesses to creating COVID-19. Tucker Carlson began to break this last night. I told you on the War Room we'd be breaking it today. He broke it. That's great. But he didn't get to the last part where he admits, the project manager, that they didn't just go get the 5 viruses, that they combined them for a vaccine. But to make the vaccine, you got to make the pathogen of something that never existed, that no one would ever make. And again, you do it in China, so that when you release it on the world, it's a weapon for China to have power over the West. But you can't blame China because U.S. and British contractors are involved organizing it with the UN and Bill Gates, who have been rooting for China and saying America's bad and saying our response was bad. So this globalist cabal went to China, did this with the Chinese. That's why the documents came out of the Australian newspapers 2 days ago, 3 days ago, I guess on Saturday, so 4 days ago. And the Chinese admit it's real. Their war college in 2015 saying we're developing SARS-CoV weaponized systems. Now this 5 virus combo is only the carrier group. Its real power is the HIV system. So the virus isn't that deadly unless you have autoimmune issues, are very sick already, pre-existing conditions, and or vitamin mineral deficiency. But as I predicted, studying the spectrum of analysis, it's a carrier where they can easily release a new variant that they've already got in a laboratory, frozen in a test tube, in liquid oxygen, that they can bring out and release anytime they want. They've even got manuals on what time to do it, early morning hours into the air, that doesn't die via the sun, and so that people coming out breathe it. You spray it on their doorsteps, you spray it into their ventilation systems at night. And they did a big implantation of it in Italy and other areas and the U.S. And so that's why they wouldn't let Trump and try to stop Trump from banning the Chinese flights up front, because they wanted to get more of the carriers in. China now basically admits they had carriers into the U.S. And then it, quote, gets rid of the old population that Gates already wants to, so they don't have to pay out the $1 trillion of benefits that people paid into. So it's a multifaceted plan. They had to get all the hospitals on board. And now Tucker Carlson has come out in a 14-minute report last night that they're not posting to YouTube, so we posted to band.video. It knows this. The censored Tucker Carlson report, Anthony Fauci let the coronavirus pandemic happen. Why isn't there a criminal investigation? That's the Fox News headline. And Fox has the report, but it's not on YouTube. There it is, censored. See the Tucker Carlson Wuhan report. Fox News won't let you see. And that's, the crew's great. I didn't give them a headline. I did say the headline this morning. I actually said, see the censored report. See the censored Tucker Carlson, Anthony Fauci. So just change the headline, please, to censor. And then this headline. Overhead shot, please. This headline right here. This headline. Tucker Carlson, Anthony Fauci let the coronavirus pandemic happen. Why isn't there a criminal investigation? Okay? This is a censored report. In the sub-headline, you explain that Fox isn't posting this online. They may have changed that since I went live. Okay? But we'll also post that to Infowars.com. So here's part of what Tucker Carlson said last night that I'm going to come back with the video. With the video of the project manager admitting it all, the smoking gun. But here's Tucker Carlson last night.
Those facts. WHO appointed none other than Peter Daszak as the only America-based representative on the investigative team looking into where the virus came. In what turned out to be a sham report, that team concluded that it's, quote, extremely unlikely that the virus came from the Wuhan lab. Again, that's not true. The WHO's investigation into the origins of the virus was fraudulent, and that matters to public health globally. One thing you'll notice is that Tony Fauci did not say that. Why? Because once again, he is implicated in it personally. The gain-of-function research that Peter Daszak was bragging about in the video we just showed you had in fact been banned explicitly by the U.S. government. The federal moratorium on the funding of exactly the kind of gain-of-function experiments that went on in the Wuhan lab to disastrous effects. So why didn't the U.S. government halt its funding of the lab in Wuhan? That is a central question, and Nicholas Wade, to his great credit, looked into it, and here's what he found. Quote, someone wrote a loophole into the moratorium. The moratorium specifically barred funding of any gain-of-function research that increased the pathogenicity of the flu, MERS, or SARS viruses. But then a footnote on page 2 of the moratorium document states that, quote, an exception from the research pause may be obtained if the head of the U.S. government funding agency determines that the research is urgently necessary to protect the public health or national security. And that's exactly the loophole that was exploited. Who signed off on this? Tony Fauci, possibly along with Francis Collins, the director of the NIH, invoked that special exemption in order to keep funding the Wuhan lab and the deadly experiments that were going on there. The experiments that clearly went so wrong. According to Richard Ebright, quote, unfortunately, the NIAID director, that'd be Fauci, and the NIH director exploited this loophole to issue exemptions to projects subject to pause, preposterously asserting that the exempted research was, quote, urgently necessary to protect public health or national security, and thereby nullifying the pause. This wouldn't have happened if Tony Fauci didn't allow it to happen. That is clear. It's an amazing story. It is a shocking story. In a functional country, there would be a criminal investigation currently underway into Tony Fauci's role in the COVID pandemic that has killed millions and halted our and changed it forever. So why isn't there a criminal investigation into Tony Fauci's role in this?
I'll tell you. Join me, George Noory, for the Worldwide Contact in the Desert virtual UFO conference.
Viruses were combined. What a bombshell. He confesses to it. Now, I have Alfie Oakes on about the pipeline shutdown, the food shortages. He's one of the biggest producers of food in Florida, if not the biggest. He doesn't just own grocery stores. His real business is growing food. And I wanted to get his expert take on the inflation we're seeing and where that's going. Selling food to grocery stores across the South and across Florida. And I got Ted Nugent coming on about the attack on guns, the open borders, and we're still going to have them on. Those are big guests, but when Nugent leaves us at the bottom of the next hour, I'm going to drill into my analysis and the complete rest of the story. Because, again, I'm being scooped by Tucker. I didn't send Tucker the story. We were working on it for a couple days. We already had all the pieces. I told him we were going to break it today, but Tucker already had a big piece of it. But the rest of it that he didn't air is the smoking gun, where he says we told the viruses and we're putting them together. You realize how big that is? And then now the fact that the former top science writer, the New York Times, they won't publish it, so he went to Medium and other publications and put it out. And Zero Hedge, before he put that out, put out a 30-page report that we're posting in the live show feed today of Infowars.com detailing it all. But this is incredible. It's worse than we even thought. Definitely premeditated, released to bring down our economies, consolidate power, and then bring in the bioweapon that Fauci also did, knowing these coronavirus vaccines will attack the protein in the body with that particular protein spike. So this is a multi-phase attack, all premeditated, all launched, and they even did their cover story so that whatever came out, they'd say, hey, I did it and blame you. It's incredible. But here's the rest of Tucker Carlson.